We good? All right, sweet. All right, thanks everyone for coming today for this webinar, the you, me, and all the T's, 2, 3s, and teens, and what they all have in common. My name is Dr. Andrea Mattison, but just call me Andrea. I own Wellness for Play, and we'll get more into it. All right, so first off, thank you to Thrive, and thank you for Lainey reaching out many, many months ago, well, actually just in the fall, to rekindle our friendship from St. Ben's days. We were talking about triathlon, and then we just kind of went on a spiral, and here we are today. So thank you so much. I'm excited for this webinar. So my intention for this class is to have you go home with something that you can use and something that you can do. Most of the time we have this great information, but then we never really apply it. So my goal for today is that you actually go home and apply it to what your kids, yourself, all the above. So just a little overview, it's very straightforward. Intros for you guys and myself, the presentation, questions, and let's just keep it simple and fun. These are my disclosures. You can read through them if you want, but I'm just going to keep going. Okay, so I kind of want to know who's here today. So if you can type in the chat, I don't know if Dan can type in the chat, but where are you listening from? Coach, the coach, it's supposed to say couch, office, out of state, the airport. I want to know like your kids' ages, or if you don't have kids, your pets' ages, because this will also apply to animals. And do you know your typical sympathetic response? Yes or no? And if yes, what is it? So if you can type that into the chat. That would be helpful. Sweet. I'm glad we don't know what the sympathetic response is, because that's what we're going to work on. How's Toronto's weather? Is it better than here?
Pretty much the same. Cold, barely any snow.
Yeah.
Just south of here in Buffalo, they got like 5 feet of snow in the last couple of days. So I'm glad I'm not dealing with that to go home from.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not imagine. But I wish we had more snow. I want to go skiing. Okay, awesome. Let's move on. Come on, move on. Oops, here we go. All right. So like I said, I am Andrea Mattison. These are my kids. My kids are 1, Addie is 1, and Tobias is 3.5. So we'll talk about them in this presentation. But I have been working in pediatrics for the last decade, and have seen all walks of life. The youngest patient I've worked with is 1, and the oldest, well, in pediatrics for our clinic is 18. But my oldest that I've ever worked with is 96. So I've seen the whole spectrum of life and worked with their nervous systems in different ways. I like being outdoors. I do triathlons. I'm very much novice at it. So if anyone's a coach out there and wants to help me out, I'll take all the help I can get. But yeah, that's my personal life. My career life, I work for a company, an awesome company that taught me most of everything we'll be talking about today, which is called Children's Theraplay. There's a clinic in Maplewood and in Plymouth. It's a fantastic PT and OT company that really focuses on a holistic approach to movement and having your kid be the best that they can be. So through that practice that I had my parents wondering if they could get the same type of treatment. And so that's when I opened Wellness for Play. And we at Play do both manual therapy techniques and with fascial counterstrain and facilitation of joint movement are the 2 that we do. And then we also, I do coaching for Play. So life coaching and helping out families figure out who they want to be, why they want to be. And my clients go from basically feeling like they're stuck on the couch one day, feeling empowered to make pancakes for the kids the next day. That's just one of my examples. So yes, it's very fun, and I'm really sorry that I'll be drinking water. I woke up with a sore throat, which I live in a petri dish at work sometimes. So what nervous system are we talking about today? It is the autonomic nervous system. This is a nervous system is part of your old brain. It starts in your brainstem and it kind of goes all the way through your spinal cord. This nervous system is automatic, so you don't really have to think about it. The biggest thing for the autonomic nervous system is that underneath it, it has the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So the sympathetic is responding to, oh, is there a threat? Yes or no. And the parasympathetic is more on the no side of threat. It's your rest and digest, while the sympathetic is your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and appease. So this is the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about today is the sympathetic nervous system, because our kids and ourselves have this window of regulation. And sometimes these windows become narrow over time, and other times they get wider and larger. And we would rather have more space and more ability to respond to many different situations in our life and appropriately behave, do the right thing, and respond appropriately to whatever's going on, rather than to just freak out and go into either a meltdown, a shutdown, a flight phase, or a fawn and appease. So we over time want to think about expanding this window. The parasympathetics are also super important because we need to have both of these systems working together for them to, in order for us to thrive and be functioning human beings. So I like this seesaw of the playful elephants to demonstrate how they are working together. So a little bit of a story time. So obviously my kids are younger, and I only have so much of their nervous systems, but right now it's actually really important because when they are younger, your nervous system is way more regulated with each other. So I have two stories about my kids, but right now I want you to also start thinking about your own life and how you are responding and how your kids are responding as I go through these stories. And then we'll kind of go through the worksheet next so that you can understand more about yourself and attitude. So Tobias, like I said, he's 3.5. So last year at 2.5, we signed him up for soccer. We solely signed him up for soccer to work on his separation. This kid, my goodness, he's such a first child, has major separation anxiety. To the point where I could not, he's like a monkey and he's like fast on me. So we go to soccer. It's on one of my work days at Theraplay. So my mom brings him and then I arrive. And when my mom's there with him, my mom had to do all the activities with him. And then I arrive and here he is just frozen. So his sympathetic response is that he's frozen. And then if he tried to go and do something, he'd go in a fight phase. And then he'd start thrashing, crying, screaming, all those things. So what I did was, knowing what I know and what I've been trained to do, was like, I need to get him to a flight phase. How can I do that? So at first I had to literally hold his hand and we would have to run all around. And then we come back to our safe spot and we run and come back, run and come back. And so I needed him to become a little more independent and get into this light fun phase more easily. So he would just step on the field and come up, step on the field. And after 4 sessions of doing kind of more of this hand holding and guiding and grading the activity, he was able to go and participate with the team. We did another session of it where he was fully able to be a part of the soccer experience. Now, does that mean his separation anxiety is gone? No, it doesn't mean, but that window of threshold of him being able to do something widened with this experience. So when he started preschool, it only took him 8 times of going to preschool, so it was 4 weeks. In order for him to be able to separate and not cry and just walk into preschool having the confidence that he now has. We use some different techniques for that type, but because he had that first experience and then we graded it and made it positive in the end, it made going to preschool a lot easier for him. Now, Addie. So Miss Adeline, she is, of course, 100% different because she's the second child and she's a true second child. She is just all over the place. She could care less about being right next to me. We sit her down at story time and there she goes, like, she's like, oh, look at it, it's an open door, let me go for it. So she's completely different. She's more in a flight phase. And in the flight phase, they just kind of keep going. They love movement. Everything's great. But once it starts getting disorganized, she then will go into a fight phase. She does this lay down and she then starts kicking and throwing her arms around. When she lays down and kicks her arms around and does all that stuff, she then wants me to come and get her. But I don't want to be out in public and have her lay down and kick her arms around. So what I do, because I know she likes the flight and she likes to move, I stay 2 to 3 feet away from her, open my arms up. I don't say a thing. I just open my arms up and she'll come over and now give me a hug. And then I'm now back in control of more control of the situation and more able to help her co-regulate and make her feel better a lot quicker than having her thrash. And then she does the whole like, whoop, where her, she just like tries to slide out. So doing it that way makes her nervous system more regulated and makes my nervous system more regulated so that in time she's totally fine. So I hope those two stories are familiar or similar to anything in your life, or you can relate a little bit about it. And so then we're now going to fill out that first part of the worksheet. So Dan, I don't know if you can pull it up. So I'm just going to talk it through. Hopefully I don't keep coughing, sorry. So the first column is just names. The second column, I want you to fill out your number one thing you would love to do for play, outside or inside, but gross motor play. So any big movement. So if I wrote my family, it'd be Andrea, Lars, Tobias, Adeline, and then like for myself, I love to go running. For Lars, he loves to go running. For Tobias, he likes heavy work. Will pull us on wagons. He'll come up with contraption and pull people from their on a bike, and he'll like pull the wagon behind him. So that's what he loves, is heavy work. And then the last, like Adeline, she really likes bouncing right now. So she will jump on anything. So that's my family. And once everyone has done that or has thought about it, can I get like a thumbs up or something? So I can move on. Or write in the chat. Okay, got the thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, repeat the question. So for the play column, put in your number one thing you think your child and yourself and your partner enjoy the most when they go play outside. So are they, do they like heavy work? Do they like just like swinging? Do they like to go down slides, like tag? They like to do CrossFit, which thrive. I don't know how you guys all do it, but your CrossFit challenges are really intense. No, just on your worksheet, because we'll keep filling it out. Awesome. Thanks, Lainey. Okay. So now we're in the stress column. We're going to go through the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and appease. So the fight phase is pretty straightforward, in my opinion. It's physical fighting and tearing and getting rid of things. But it's also fighting with words. And that's the one that kind of is like interesting one to think about. So like your child that comes in and they're just like screaming at you and you're like, what? That is them in a fight phase. What they like to do, and like what they like to do a lot is like rough and tumble play, crashing, literally play fighting, and heavy work. So like for teenagers, they really like going to the gym and working out because it makes their body feel grounded and more secure. And I'm going to backtrack one hot second and say that obviously we have all of these in us. It's just kind of which one is kind of coming through on average most often right now in your kid's life. And these can ebb and flow very easily. So like right now, Tobias is actually more in a flight phase because he's moving around and running more often. And I'll share a story in 1 second. But so a flight phase is constantly wanting to move and running around. So these kids, when they come into my clinic, they come in and they find my container of balls, they sit down, it's always kind of the same. They sit down and try to, sit, but their body wants to keep moving. And they all of a sudden are throwing the balls and then chasing them all around my room. And then the parent goes, oh, sit still, sit still. And I'm like, oh, this is fine. This is actually teaching me something. And then going back to that window of regulation, if the kid is sitting there, starts throwing the balls, and it's like an organized play and they just like moving, that's a great use of the flight. That's a great use of sympathetics. And that's a great use of feeling grounded and okay in this new situation. But if it's like a disorganized, all over the place, then they can't clean up, they can't follow directions. They're starting to like seem like they're going to shut down. Then that's when it is more of a sympathetic response, and they're getting too stressed, and it's showing me a different thing. So they're fine-tuned. It's not always like black and white. There's all these grays in between. So, but as long as you can keep this information in your mind, like, oh, my kid is shutting down because of blah, 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 blah. And now I know how to regulate myself. And now we're going to start playing games to help them out. Then their window threshold is going to be greater. And then you feel more empowered yourself. And you feel better about your own life too. So anyways, going back to the flight, the play that they enjoy doing is tag, capture the flag, running, jumping, anything that has just like a ton of movement. For freeze, this is like more stationary. They're just kind of literally frozen. They kind of look like deer in headlights. These kids like to play hide and seek. Or like to be cozy. So womb space. We call it womb space because it's a stage of development that this one OT came up with. But it's like womb space is just like this cozy tight feeling. Fawn and appease is actually, I think, the hardest one to spot on kids. And these kids are always the ones that just follow along, and they don't seem like they're stressed out. They're very much cool and collected. They don't really have an opinion. They kind of just are easygoing. But once you like kind of pull them away from the situation and ask them a question, you realize they actually have no idea what's going on. And that's why they're so easygoing, is because it's all of it's like too much, and it's just watching others and following others is just so much easier. And so those kids, when you see them playing, are usually the ones that like to watch other kids for quite some time, and then they just copy what the other kids are doing. They don't usually do much by themselves unless they've experienced it prior. So again, like I said, we have all of this in us, and we can ebb and flow through all of them. Sometimes it's actually good to do all of it, like be in a flight phase. That's a lot of sports. But it's when it becomes their go-to method for during a time of stress that we want to just be aware of it, and so that we can help our kids out and help ourselves out a little bit more, and our spouses. All right. So in that stress column, go ahead and fill out what you think your child, yourself, and your partner are most right now in their lives, what they're doing most often when they're stressed out. And then let me know in the chat when you're dealing with that. Oh, and the story about Tobias and going into a flight phase. So obviously we've been working with him on getting more out of the, thank you, the thumbs up. The, what am I trying to say here? The frozen to fight phase. And so like the last 2 nights, he's needed lotion because it's so dry. And he'll go and run while I get the lotion out. He knows it's lotion time. He'll go and run, like take a few laps around the house. And I just will wait patiently. I won't say anything. It takes about 10 to 20 seconds, and then he's back and he's ready to go. He's moved through that movement. He's used that cortisol and the adrenaline. And he's like, okay, now I can have the lotion. So instead of me being like, what are you doing? Why are you like running away? Come back here. I need to put lotion on you. I just was calm, cool, and collected. Just sat there, regulated myself, took some deep breaths, and was like, we'll see how this goes. And within 10 to 20 seconds, he was back, ready to get his lotion on him. So my question for you guys, in that play category and the stress category, do those line up? Are they similar or are they different? And you can let me know in the chat. Yeah, isn't that crazy how they line up? Pretty much spot on. It is one of those things that we go into our stress when we are stressful, and then we like to play with it at the same time. And that was a big part of like learning that, which because so a little backtrack, their place started doing trauma-informed care stuff before the pandemic. And there was just like all of a sudden this need, and we see a lot of foster to adopt kids, and we just kind of had this big need of learning more about our nervous systems and how they're affecting us totally socially. And so sorry, it's Dan's thing, or no, whoever Thrive is. Oh yes, this is Greg, sorry. Sorry, Greg. So it's just really interesting how they always match up. Greg said similar, our daughter is very much a fight response and loves roughhousing, whereas our son is more games like hide and seek, puzzles, etc., and tends to be to freeze in stressful situations. Yep. Yeah. It's really fascinating how they all line up. So in times of fun, we want to play with that to widen like their times of stress, to widen that threshold of opportunity. And it can change over time. We'll get there. Okay, so now what? Now we know this great, interesting things about our nervous system that we've hopefully learned in high school. And now let's actually apply it to ourselves, and let's play. So this is a little like, sorry, moving all my stuff. A little progression of how things kind of, not always, of course we're humans, can't be perfect, how it usually, like, you usually work through things. So let's go with Jack. I got permission to talk about Jack. So Jack was getting some zoomies or crazies right before bed. And you know, we were trying to figure out what was going on. And so we stayed curious. We tried to piece things together and how he could go from zoomies to sleep within 5 minutes. That's what Greg had mentioned. I was like, it smokes, that's really incredible. So he must be tapping out, and then he's just down to his parasympathetics. So he was probably freezing or doing something at school, and then the only way he figured out was to get the zoomies and then go down to sleep. So I came in and I gave him a job. We played the floors lava, which is a great game to play with any age. Because they are, you can make it as easy or difficult as you want. So we're playing the floor is lava, and he goes from being like kind of excited, but kind of frozen, kind of not sure where his body is. You know, he's kind of just disorganized to getting really organized. And then he didn't really go into a fight, but he went into a fight, and then he goes into hide and seek at the end. Okay, I don't think that made much sense. So I'm going to start over and just do an actual example. I didn't think about Jack too closely right then. So we're going to start over with that. Okay, so if a kid comes into my office and they go into a freeze, mainly, we're going to start with having them in room space or doing something kind of close together. Then I'm going to provide them a sword of some sort, a pillow, you know, a noodle or something along those lines. From there, we're going to try to start fighting. They're going to fight. From there, they are going to themselves, when they are done with that amount of fighting, they're going to go into a flight phase. So now it's going to be like a pillow and then running away. So they're going to come in and out of doing like a hit, and then they'll run away, and then they'll hit, and then they'll run away. And I think you can kind of see this like progression. So now we're in the flight phase. They're kind of running. And then once they are fully capable and feel good about themselves, they're going to go into a hide and seek. So they're just going to go play hide and seek all that they want. But this hide and seek is at the end of everything. And it means that they've kind of gone through this entire cycle of feeling okay about themselves. So, but say you start with a flight person. So say we start with Addie and she likes flighting all over around. Then we just play like a tag or capture the flag or whatever she wants to play. And then she'll start doing hide and seek when she's done. Granted, she's one, so she probably won't do hide and seek because she doesn't even cognitively know it, but that's a whole different point. But see how you can just like pop in. So wherever your child is at, you just slide in some games into that area. And then hide and seek is your cue to know that it's done and they feel comfortable about themselves and they can move on. Like you just, widen that window just a little bit more. Now, say you have several kids and they both are different. Start with whatever one is further to the fawn and the peas side. Start with that kid because the other kid will totally enjoy the game progression throughout. If you do it the reverse, so say you have a fawn and a peas and a freeze one, but you start them with a flight, that will be too much for them, and they'll usually shut down and not know what to do because you didn't start where their thresholds were. So always start closer to the fawn and the peas side. Does that make sense? I get like a thumbs up or. Cool, thanks, Layton. So I kind of just went over this, but I like to have it written out too. So in times of play with what is challenging and stressful to them in stressful times. And at the end, they will be doing hide and seek. You don't need to find them when they're playing hide and seek. You just kind of pretend to find them, and they'll come out of it. Then a huge part of this as well is this world does not set us up for wins, which are just successes in our life, and they can be big or small. So really be mindful that kids need to be successful 75% of the time to actually believe they are successful. And so set up, take your expectations and chop them if it's not going well, but find the win within that situation. So keep being positive, calling them out, and showing that they are strong and powerful and great kids. because that will go a lot further than any of the negativity that they have to deal with all the time. And same with us. Call it your own wins, call it your spouse's wins. We didn't date and get married to always be in grudges with each other. We wanted to have fun and thought we would have a good life together. So just keep that in mind, it's so important to keep a playful and a winning mindset. So meltdowns happen all the time. They even happen in your teenage years. They just look a little different. So because meltdowns are so, like, every kid kind of does them differently. Here, I'm just giving you a few topics and a few ideas that is more in like general. So first off and foremost, co-regulation. Co-regulation is huge for your kids because your kids' nervous systems are so well tied to your own. So what that means is that when they're an infant, they literally use their mirror neurons to connect with yourself, connect with whatever caretaker they're with. And so if the caretaker's stressed, the infant will be stressed. And it's not always a direct correlation, but let's just go along with it. If your child is now crying and you were not stressed, and then you meet with a child, now you're stressed because the child won't stop crying, it kind of can become this cycle over time. And so really regulate yourself and do those self-cares, appreciate what you can do in order for you to be a better parent and be able to follow your kids' lead at times, but also keep them in boundaries and keep them safe. Next up, during meltdowns and times of stress, please try not to use words. Dan Siegel calls it fire in the brain. And fire in the brain really just means that when in an fMRI, when a kid's having a meltdown, their speech areas, so Broca's and Wernicke's areas, get turned down rate. Well, they're not being used very well. It's just all chaos. So they don't really understand what you're trying to say or trying to tell them. So if you need to say something, because you're so used to saying something, just try to say you're safe over and over again. Just say you're safe. Because remember, this is their sympathetic nervous system saying there's a threat. Something is going to kill them, even though it could be as simple as lotion. Lotion is going to, is going to attack them. So they need to run it out. But that's, obviously we know it's not. And just saying you're safe will reinforce that they are in a safe spot. If you're in public and something happens, get outside. Nature is hugely important to us, as we are literally animals. And just getting outside allows us to be, to feel like the breeze in our hair, and just kind of change the situation completely. So if you feel like you're like, oh my gosh, this is about to happen, just get outside as quickly as possible. I mean, right now you literally would like freeze and it could totally change how everything's going. Then review the stressful event in a non-stressful time. This can please, well, with your older kids, Dan, they can happen pretty closely together, but for younger kids, you kind of want to separate the time and review it, like either the next day or that evening if they're able to, like if they're still cognitively present for that day and not already thinking about the next day. And stay curious, because usually a meltdown happens because it's the tip of the iceberg. And under the surface of the water, there's so much more to it than that tip of the iceberg. So for Jack, he was getting these zoomies. This is where I was thinking about adding Jack in, not on that other slide. So sorry about my mishap there. But anyways, he was at school and he brought up that he doesn't like his snow gear. And he has an awesome one-piece suit. He could easily get it on. I was like, this is fantastic. I'm going to get this from the kids. And then I stayed curious and I was like, well, Jack, you do a great job putting this on. He goes, yeah, but it's not like anyone else's. And so Jack wanted, snow pants and a jacket, because that's like everyone else's. And so he was like, that itself was so stressful, and it happened the year prior. He must have had the same one, I could be wrong. And so that was just real, that for him was really, he wasn't like everyone else. It was just stressful for him. And so when we made the plan that they could potentially go and get new ones, he's like, oh yeah, that'd be a lot better. And he hasn't had the Zoomies before bed and for the last few nights. So even just realizing that it doesn't even have to be like he would have the Zoomies before bed, but this was happening at school. Those all can correlate. And sometimes it's even days in advance. And we could do a whole nother seminar about trauma and how that all plays out. And trauma should not be a scary word. It's just stress over time, or stress, a big stressful event. Anyways, that's another thing. And then finally, for these meltdowns, when you start seeing them, or you start seeing them in your teenager kids, with them not like being engaged in their environment, start adding play back into their diet. And the play games that really go well with all of this, we'll talk about right now. So fight games are like some ideas as like heavy work, grounding them and carrying in groceries and digging and shoveling and all those things are just good to do in general, because it helps your joints get their proprioception that they need. But it also is really grounding, and it kind of has that like fight intensity to them. They won't go through the progression, hopefully, with shoveling, but maybe they will. Maybe they'll start running afterwards. Who knows? Fight games that will go more through that progression is like a pillow fight or a needle fight games. But if you start at a flight, or like any sort of tag, there's so many renditions. Capture the flag, floor is lava, don't wake up with a sleeping parent, which is a great one when parents are tired, where they have to go and grab like a piece of a puzzle and go around or over the parents, and they can make it as hard or as easy as they want and scare them. So when you're playing these games, or you're thinking about, oh, I need to like do something, you want these games to go through different sympathetic responses. So you want them to kind of go up and hit and come back down, and kind of continuously get a little excited, but come back down, and get a little more excited, come back down, feel a little insecure, come back down. Because that is going to be what is building your bigger window over time. And for fun, appease and freeze, give them the womb space, and then get them out of the womb space and how they like feel comfortable and confident into a fight phase. Yes, those are game ideas. Does that all make sense? Can I get a thumbs up? Thank you. Cool. So that is pretty much the end of the topics today. If you guys feel like you're stuck or you want more information, I have 4 available spots in my Empowered to Play coaching program right now. And this is a 6-month program. It's every other week. That works both with your kids and the caregivers. And if you want to email me at andrea@playptmn.com within the first 15 minutes of the end of the session, you can get a discount on the course. And the way we start this coaching program is to set up a free call to make sure you guys have goals and that we are a good fit for each other. Because I also want to work with awesome people. So if I don't feel like we're a good fit, and if you don't think I'm a good fit, let's not go dancing. So that is up for you guys if you're curious. These are my references. Thank you so much. And does anyone have any questions?